Campbell. You can also call me Becca. I'm a sports dietitian and eating disorder specialist with a passion for knowledge and education surrounding all things REDS, which is relative energy deficiency in sport, or I like to term it as deficit. And I want to take this moment to talk about a recent study that will be down in the comments. You're welcome to take a look at. And it explored how individuals that actually had the highest amount of nutrition knowledge actually had an increased risk of disordered eating or eating disorder development. And at first instinct, I was kind of like, well, that seems odd, right? If a lot of this we're believing is around a knowledge deficit that causes athletes to be underfueled. But then I thought about it. We don't make decisions for the most part initially around facts and knowledge. We make them around feelings. We are drawn in with a narrative, right? Or think about how we sell sports and media. Look at how women's basketball has taken off with sharing stories about these players and almost creating like animosity and division. So that way these ratings sell. And you'll see even the athletes afterwards are like, I don't have any problem with her. This is just basketball. This is just competing. Whereas right now we're in the Olympic trials. You know, we don't want to just hear about somebody just strolls out onto the track and qualifies. We want to hear about how they just had a baby in March and they're juggling being a mom and an athlete and a wife. Or we want to hear about this rags to riches story, right? Like the underdog, because that stems some sort of deep-seated emotion that we connect with, or a story that resonates with us, and that's what draws us in. So the challenge is a lot of marketing, whether we get onto social media or we get onto Google, is going to use that approach because they know that's what sells. And so I really want to challenge you to think rationally as to your goals you may be setting when you're exploring a supplement, a nutritional approach, maybe targeted goals. Does it align with the outcome that you want? Are we using our emotions? So I'm going to take a moment. Most of us only use about 7 words of vocabulary for our emotions when we have a whole plethora of emotions to describe how we feel and make decisions. Need my computer to cooperate. So this is an emotion wheel, right? On one side, we have the comfortable emotions. On the other side, we have the uncomfortable. So a lot of times we are making our decisions based on avoiding the uncomfortable emotions. Maybe it makes you anxious that you have to put 16 to 18 weeks in of training to not have a guaranteed outcome. Maybe you're injured and you want to find some way to not feel powerless. So instead, you want to feel respected. You want to feel powerful. You want to be confident. And so it takes you down that rabbit hole of, you know what? If I can control my weight or reduce my weight, then that may make me feel powerful because I am in control of this. I'm in charge of this. And thus, in turn, it makes me confident. And then avoid feeling powerless. If I'm feeling anxious about the work that I'm putting in, then maybe I want to explore kind of limiting myself because I don't want to take risk. And so that might be the athlete that really needs to be bumping up their energy intake and their carbohydrate intake. And even though we have lots of knowledge that says, hey, for the training that you're doing, these are the targets that you need to hit, and you're not hitting them. Why is that? Is that because perfectionism is getting in the way that you don't feel like you're worthy of that or that you reach in that category? And so it keeps you safe and secure by staying within this realm. Or it may be that you're avoiding of you hear these words like clean eating or unprocessed or eating like an athlete. And so that kind of takes you in the opposite where you feel ashamed or embarrassed if you might need to eat something that's processed and convenient, or you feel guilty because your food made the dirty pile or not clean pile. those aren't decisions based on facts, right? Like maybe the fact is you're running around working 13 hours a day and you haven't had time to go to the grocery store because you're juggling a lot. And the choice is either don't eat or have something that's convenient. These are based on facts. But the emotion makes you feel guilty because you didn't choose to go prepare and meal prep on Sunday because you were busy, or you craved something or wanted something instead, even though your brain and body may have some wisdom. So I'm going to share kind of a personal story. I actually moved in the month of May, and about almost a year before that, we had an appointment with the bank that we were going to sit down and fill out the paperwork. We'd had our loan for our property, and then now we were going to merge and have the construction loan. And so you have all these stacks of paperwork that you've filled out. But before you go in, you have all these visions, right? Like I have to admit, I watch like the Oppenheimer Group and some of these real estate, like the OC, and so you're just like these fairy tales of infinity pools and these big beautiful backyards and having this wine cellar with hundreds of bottles, even though I only go through about a bottle in a couple of weeks, because it makes me feel like, ooh, this is something that's sought after. It's beautiful, it's elegant, right? It makes me feel validated for the work that I put in as an entrepreneur and working hard at me and my husband. Then you sit down and adulting takes over. And we start hearing things about debt to income ratio and county regulations and government guidelines. And you're like, well, there goes the dream, right? Or it may be like, okay, for right now, this is what needs to be prioritized with the money and resources you have. And then down the line, how is that any different than a lot of times when we approach things in the sports realm? If somebody is training, maybe they're new to a sport, they don't necessarily jump into these exorbitant goals and training programs. They have to wait and be patient and stack that training first. Then down the line, if somebody is coming out of a state of reds, right, they don't have enough income to pull that debt to take that risk. Therefore, they have to really build that income back up to be able to eventually have that, or maybe it's just not even worth it. If somebody has had an injury, right, we may have to be really cautious with that ratio because we don't want to get re-injured. And so there may be other factors that we're taking a look at. It's not always the funnest conversations to have, but I guarantee it pays off because there are certain risks that are worth taking. There are other risks that have the payoff in the end. And that's the one that we really need to invest in because that's based on facts, right? It's looking at the data, it's looking at your history, it's looking at the situation in hand. So in that same meeting with the bank, unfortunately, that morning woke up to find out that somebody had stolen our car out of our garage. And as we're sharing this with the banker, he's like, I hate to tell this to you, but after the housing crisis, because you are filing for this loan, you will not be able to get a new car at this time. You can get a newer car, but you would not be able to get a loan to get a new car because on paper, that looks like that you're taking way too many risks all at once. And so you'll have to wait until a later time. And so that stung. And that also brings back to another lesson that sometimes life isn't always fair. Sometimes we have to put in the extra work. Sometimes we have to wait longer. Sometimes we just, unfortunate things happen to us and we have to accept them for where it's at and control the controllables and be able to do what we can in our future. Now, that's not to say like I'm immune to it. Just the other day, we were heading to a game and I look up and I love yellow. So if you can't tell, I've got a big yellow notebook and I have a yellow purse. It's just something about this vibrant, bright color. And there on top of this hill was this big, beautiful canary yellow Corvette. And before thinking car payment, motor, I can't even fit other girls to take them to practice. I don't even know where I'd get the groceries. I'm just putting myself behind the steering wheel. You have a teen daughter, right? Like moms are not cool. how cool would that be to be like pulling in, here's your mom with this beast of a motor. And my husband just rolled his eyes like, oh my God, he'd probably like wrap that around something, not used to that kind of power and vehicle. But instantaneously, I was in that vision. I could feel that emotion. And then, yes, when you put that out there, sometimes then you get that reinforcement of reality of the facts over feelings. But I think this is really important when we're making decisions in your nutrition, your supplementation, your training, that you're taking a step back, you're pulling up that emotion wheel and you're asking which one is driving the bus right now, right? Which one's buying that Corvette? Is it the fact or is it the feelings? And then go from there. I think we'd see a whole lot healthier, happier, more resilient athletes if we did. So feel free to take my newsletter there where I give some tips and tricks on how to make those decisions. Drop a line if you'd like to be subscribed to that. And I'll also put that study in there that we referenced in the beginning. And Joe, I didn't get the yellow Corvette, but yet I still have dreams of how good. Bye, guys.